Hey there, it's Cassie. Thank you for joining me on my YouTube channel today. Today I have the Brutus Monroe Bunnies and Blossoms Inspiration Box, which is the box for March. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at what's inside. All right, so this is how the box is going to show up to your house. How is that for Happy Mail? Oh my gosh, cuteness. And it comes with an enamel pin. I love this one. And your little inspiration sheet, which actually just tells you everything that's in the kit. This month's box has this really beautiful aqua pigment color. Now these are not available in the store because, that's the perk of getting the inspiration boxes. And this one, Chris called Bunny Nose. I don't know if that's the actual name of it, but he called it Bunny Nose, and I thought that was sweet, so that's what I'm going to call it. And I just swatched that out for you. It's a light pink, but so shimmery and so pretty, and I do use it on a few projects. Love that. These boxes just come with so much in them, so many goodies. So let's take a look at the glitter stock that comes in the kit. This is 2, and it's really big sheets, and I'm just rubbing that, and as far as I could tell, it did not rub off on my hands. Beautiful. You're also going to get a pack of cardstock and pattern paper. So it comes with 4 of these polka dot patterns in those different colors and 4 of the striped in those colors. And then it also comes with 8 pieces of textured cardstock. So 2 in each of these colors that you see there. So that's a lot of crafty goodness right there. That's 16 pieces of paper. Then we'll go ahead and take a look at the stamp set because the stamp set is big and beautiful, and it's called Some Bunny. And I love those cute little bunnies, their little expressions. And it also has this really big, beautiful background stamp. And a couple of the stamps actually coordinate perfectly, so you could stamp those out and pop those up if you really wanted to. And it also has lots of really great sentiments. So this is a great stamp set. And as far as this kit is still available, so I will link that down below. You also get a jar of micro beads or micro pearls, so good for shakers. You also get this bag of beautiful flowers. And I didn't make any cards with these, but I did make a project. So I will show you that at the end. But a lot of really big, beautiful flowers. So some big ones, some small ones, and a lot of various colors. And I like how they all coordinate really well with the kit. You're also going to get this spool of ribbon. And I didn't take it all the way off the spool, but I didn't realize that spool itself actually has a little chipboard bunny cut out of the center too. So you can use that on your projects when you're done with your ribbon. It also comes with this very generous bag of sequins, this sequin mix of little eggs and just a lot of beautiful sparklies. And I also discovered as I was putting them away that it also has this tiny little bunny head in there too. How cute is that? Huh, I love that. So I used that on a project and I ended up still having plenty left over, so I can use that in future projects as well. It also comes with this small square of glitter stock. This is a new color for Brutus Monroe. It also has these 3 chipboard stencils, so you get the positive and the negative for each of these. And these are great, so when their shelf life is done, you can use them on your projects as well. So I love those. Really cute. You're also going to get this bag of embroidery floss, and the colors vary in each of the boxes. I got blue, which I'm excited about. And then you're also going to get the foilable paper pack. So there are 8 pieces in here. You get 2 each of 4 designs, and I will show you those 4 designs. And these are great because you can sponge them, you can paint them, you can color them, you can foil them. And so I do that on a few. But aren't those beautiful? Such intricate designs. For project number 1, I'm going to jump right in and do something called underpainting, which can be done several different ways, but I'm going to do it using some distress inks in the colors Squeezed Lemonade and Dried Marigold, and I'm also going to use the little Bunny Nose aqua pigment that came in the kit. So I'm going to put that all over my little Tonic Studios mat that came with my glass media mat, spritz it with water, and then I have a piece of Kansan XL watercolor paper that I'm smushing around in it. If you've watched my channel at all, you know this is nothing really new for me. And so I'll heat set that, and then I will put it back into the rest of what's on my mat. And then I'll heat that again, and I want to add a little bit more pink, so I add some more of that aqua pigment, and then I spritz it with water and dab that all over my background as well. and I'll show you what it looks like all dry, but this is an underpainting. So this will take some of the intimidation out of using the big stamp set, or the big stamp that I am using from the stamp set. So I have this in my Mini Misty, and this is kind of necessary because I'm using a textured watercolor paper, and I am using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And so I've got that done with my magnets, and I'm going to stamp that out. And you will see that because it's textured, it definitely needs to be stamped more than once. And so I will ink that up again, and I will stamp that out. And I do have out my clear embossing powder. I had run my embossing buddy all over that background before I stamped. And then I'm going to cover that once I have the good coverage of ink all over it. I'm going to cover that with clear embossing powder because I do want to emboss this. And the reason I want to emboss this is because I plan to do some watercoloring, and I am going to be a little impatient here. And so with those raised lines, and just for reference, this is sped up about 4 times because otherwise this painting would have taken way too long. So I have that embossed because I wanted the raised lines. I wanted to be able to paint right next to things and not worry about the paint dipping into or bleeding into other areas. And so with the raised embossing, that helps. That makes it so that you can just keep painting and not have to worry so much about things bleeding into other areas. Because if I didn't have that, I would definitely have some bleed in. I'm using my Daniel Smith watercolors along with a number 4 silver watercolor brush to paint my images. And what I was talking about with the underpainting is that underpainting really makes it just a lot less intimidating, because that background stamp is absolutely beautiful, but it can be intimidating because it's very detailed, which is also one of the things that's most appealing about it. So by using the underpainting, I can, I don't know, just feel a little less intimidated. So I'll just start putting down color, and it's neat to see how the underpainting kind of reacts with the painting that you do on top. And so it just, oh my goodness, it's just an absolutely beautiful look. And I do end up doing it once again later on for a different project. And I won't show you that whole thing because that process took a little bit of time. But I will put them side by side so you can see the difference. But you absolutely have got to try doing some sort of underpainting if you've never done it before. It is, the results are just wonderful. And so I'm just going to keep painting this background, adding some shadowing and adding just different things to it. And I love how the background that I already put on there is just, it completely just, I don't know, it just changes how you're painting on top of it. And so I'm just adding different colors for the different rocks and the different shades of dirt, and I'm just kind of in awe because honestly this is actually the first time I've actually done underpainting before, and I'm going to do it over and over and over again if I can because I love the results. It's just so fun, which is why I do it again for another project. So I'll just keep painting, and I love how the shimmer from the aqua pigment shows through as well. So that's another neat thing about it. When you use one of the pigmented colors like that has the shimmer, oh my goodness, it's beautiful. And I will show you here in the end after the card is done. So I'm even going to use just a little bit more of that and add that to the flowers so it ties it in a little bit more. And just finishing details. So then I will grab my white gel pen and I'm going to color in the clouds. And once you do that, oh, that really makes it pop too. And I'll do it in some other little areas to add some highlights to the little envelope and then the glass in the little windows and a few other little areas. And I just love how that ends up popping like that. I'll trim down that panel and I'll trim down the rest of my pieces, and I'll glue that to a little green piece that came in the kit. So I cut that down. And then just a white card base, and I stamped Happy Spring, and take a look at that. Turned out really nice. For project number 2, I'm going to use one of the foilable cards that comes in the kit, and I'm going to use some of the Vivace makeup brushes that I've talked about before. I'm just going to do some sponging all over this background. I am using several different Distress ink colors. I'm using Shabby Shutters for my green. I'm using Tumbled Glass for my blue, Shaded Lilac for my purple, Spun Sugar for my pink, and I'm using the same colors that I used on the previous card, the Squeezed Lemonade and the Dried Marigold. And all I'm going to do is just go back and forth. And the point is not to stain the lines, obviously. I'm just trying to cover a lot of this panel, leaving the little bunnies white and coloring up the eggs and coloring up the flowers, because this is a very beautiful and fairly busy background. And so I'm using even the smaller of the makeup brushes as well for the pink, and I use a little bit of it for the blue later as well. And in between, cleaning off those brushes on my microfiber cloth that I have sitting there. But this background ends up looking super, super colorful. But I'm not going to be done there. So once I am done blending all those colors all over that background, I want to use some foil. I'm going to use the Purple Sketch Brutus Monroe foil. This is new, so you can find this in the shop, and I will link that down below. And I'm going to trim some of that down, and I'm going to make a little sandwich with some copy paper, sticking that on top of my foilable paper card, and then I'm going to run that through my Amazon Basics laminator. I let my laminator heat up for quite a while, for probably about half hour, 45 minutes, because I knew I wanted to do this card, so I let that heat up very, very well. And then I ran that through and kind of let that cool for a little while before I peeled off my foil. And voila, oh my goodness. How is that for some eye candy? That turned out so much prettier than I thought it was going to turn out. So I've trimmed down some of the paper or pattern paper that came in the kit, along with trimming down my panel as well. I trimmed that down just a little bit more. And I'm going to use that ribbon that came in the kit as well. And right now I'm just going to tie a bow. So I have left everything attached. I haven't cut anything yet other than that one small piece, but that's not for the ribbon or for the bow. And this is 17 years of bow making here. So all you do is manipulate back and forth. And the nice thing is if you don't like it, you pull it out and you start over. So just keep working it if you're not happy. And then I'll trim that down and my little bow is ready to go. All right, so the other day I had showed you in a haul video some new embossing powder that I got from Brutus Monroe called the Raven Sparkle. And people asked how detailed I might be able to get with this. So let me show you. I wanted to try it out. I wasn't sure how detailed I could get. So there's the Raven Sparkle, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It's some black with some sparkle in it. And I ran my embossing bag over my cardstock, and I have this in my Mini Misty, and I am inking that up with some Versamark ink, just a clear sticky ink. And then I am going to cover that with that Raven Sparkle embossing powder. Now, I was just trying this out. I was not sure how detailed I could get with this, but these little stamps say Bunny and Kisses, and it's very, very detailed. So I've covered that, and now I'm going to take my heat gun, and you're going to start off at the back, and I started heating that because you don't want the sparkle to go everywhere, and once it starts to melt, then you can go to the front. And I was shocked. This stuff was able to get so detailed. I was like, I'm in love. Look at that. Is that not gorgeous? It worked. So kudos to you, Brutus Monroe. This stuff is awesome. So I'm just going to trim that out by hand, leaving a little white border around each of those. And then I'll start assembling my card. I'm just using some liquid glue. I'm going to attach my foiled card to my pattern paper. And then I have a card base ready to go, and this will end up covering that entire card base. But before I do that, I want to attach my ribbon. So I am taking some washi tape, and I'm just attaching that to the back with the ribbon. It doesn't obviously need to be pretty because this is the back and no one's going to see it. So I'm just attaching it. This is the easiest way I've found to attach that ribbon. And now I can take some more of that liquid glue and put that all over the back. You know, you don't want to go too crazy because you don't want your paper to warp too much or at all. And so you just be sparing. And then I'll line that up with my card base and I'll let that dry. And now I have covered my little sentiment with some foam tape, and I'm just going to attach that because I want my background to really do most of the talking. And then I started off trying to use some of this Ranger glue, and I even let it sit for a bit, but it didn't work. So then I decided to grab that liquid glue that I'd been using for the background, which is just a tacky glue, and it ends up working a whole lot better. So I let that sit for a couple minutes, and then voila, there is project number 2. I am digging the shine. I don't know about you, but I love this one. Project number 3 is going to use some of the glitter stock that came in the kit, the silver that I have trimmed down, and I have some Express It cardstock that I'm going to throw into my Mini Misty because I'm going to stamp out a couple of images. One is the bunny and one is the little sentiment that says, "Some bunny loves you." Now I do switch gears here in a little bit with the sentiment because I decided I needed more color. but I am going to stamp those out using Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And I'm just using my hand to condition the stamps so that I can accept the ink a little bit better. So I'll stamp those a couple times. And it's at this point I'm thinking, well, the background's going to be silver, so I definitely want something a little bit different for the sentiment. So I carefully, without cleaning my stamp, set it down on some of the pink pattern paper that came in the kit. And I am going to stamp that again, just using that same Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I'll stamp it a couple times to make sure that I have a good crisp image. And then I will get ready to cut that out. Now I trimmed it down. I'm going to use one of my circle nestabilities, and I'm going to run that through my Sizzix Sidekick. I know y'all were wondering when it was going to make its appearance, since I love that thing. And I trimmed down the Some Bunny Loves You sentiment. So I'm making a bookmark in case you hadn't noticed or figured it out. So I have a little hole punch so that I can punch or add some twine later, or some of the floss. And I'm using my corner chomper for the edges. I thought the just plain rectangle was a little plain for me. And I've trimmed down some more of that pattern paper that came in the kit. This is just some of that green stripes. And I'm going to use some liquid glue to start adhering everything. So I've just got some regular liquid glue. And I'll adhere all the little pieces. And that's okay that it goes off the side. I will trim that down. And if my camera's going wonky, it's because that glitter stock is extremely shimmery, which makes my heart happy. So it might distract you if you're actually trying to read a book and you've got this shimmery bookmark. I have no idea, but I loved it, so I was like, that's happening. So now I'm adhering the rest of my elements to my bookmark. And it killed me not to use foam tape, but obviously this is going to be a bookmark, so I don't want it to have too much dimension. And so everything's down, and now I will flip that over and trim off the excess pieces. And in the process, I've decided that since my laminator is good and hot, I am going to laminate my bookmark. This will ensure that none of those pieces come off and that this bookmark lasts for ages. So I'm trimming down some of my laminator papers, I guess, and it's the Amazon Basics stuff. It's super cheap. You get like 100 for like next to nothing. So I'm running this through my laminator, and I like to run it through several times different ways. So it's adhered, it's nice and on there, but I like to take it that way, trim down a little bit of the excess, turn it sideways, turn it upside down, just making sure that the lamination is very, very adhered. And then when I'm done with that, I will trim it all down. And then I'll use a smaller hole punch to punch a hole through my other hole. And I'm going to grab some of the embroidery floss, and I've already trimmed it down. And I'm starting to fold it in half because I want this to be nice and bunched. And at this point, I'm like, okay, I'll trim. Wait a minute. Nope, think this through. I need that hole. So I'm going to pop this through the hole I've already put in my bookmark. And then I can take the rest of those pieces, open that hole back up, flip it through, and then this is where I trim. So I'll trim those so that they're free flowing, and then I'll tie a knot at the end of that so that this is not going anywhere. And this will finish off my bookmark. How easy was that? Super fun too. Project number 4 is going to use those adorable chipboard stencils that came in the kit. So I'm just popping out all of the negative pieces, and I'm going to set those aside for another project. And this is going to use some oldie but goodie Delusion ink sprays. So we're going to do some ink spraying all over a cardstock background. But I have used some Kansan XL watercolor paper because I want to make sure that this stuff adheres well. Not that it wouldn't adhere well to regular cardstock, but this will make it so there's a little less warping. So I've put this inside of my little spray box, my little makeshift spray box, and I'm using some masking paper, just some copy paper that I have cut down. And I'm putting each of the stencils in there, and I'm kind of staggering them, and I'm spraying with the different inks. And I'm using Funky Fuchsia, Pure Sunshine, Dirty Martini, and Vibrant Turquoise. Those are the colors I'm going to use. And I've had these babies for a number of years. So, and the trick with them is that every time you're done using them, you do need to make sure that you clean off the nozzle so that it doesn't get clogged. So, as you can tell, my green is quite a bit clogged. So I got that cleaned out and sprayed it as best I could. Now I'm moving down to the Vibrant Turquoise. Just spraying that through the little chick. And these do get pretty wet, so you do want to make sure and kind of heat set them in between so they aren't too warped because they are chipboard. And then I'll just keep moving on, and I'm going back to that funky fuchsia. And I'll spritz that in there, and I don't even mind that the colors are overlapping. I kind of want it to. And then the last one is the little chick in the pure sunshine, and I love how that funky fuchsia kind of goes over to it. So I'm heat setting that now, and I'm looking at it going, there isn't enough blue and there isn't enough green. So I'm going to stick that back into my box, spritz, and what I should have done is just taken the nozzle out of the bottle and flicked some blue on there, because I ended up, I think, going a little overboard. And the green, because it's fairly clogged, is, that gave me the drops that I wanted. So I'll heat set that, and then I'm going to get ready to start getting the rest of my background ready to go. So I've cut down some of that purple polka dotted cardstock or pattern paper that came in the kit, and I'm going to attach that to a white card base. That's going to take up the whole card base. And then I have cut down the little square of glitter stock that came in the kit, the little yellow one, and I've trimmed that down to be a little smaller than the egg stencil, and I've also trimmed down some acetate. If you can't tell by now, I am going to make a shaker. I thought that these little stencils would be perfect for making a shaker. So I have used some 1/8" score tape all around the outside of my egg. I'm attaching my acetate, and then I'm going to start attaching the last bit that I'll do is attach my last card panel to the card base and set that off to the side to dry. I've doubled up my foam tape and trimmed it down, and I'm going all the way around the outside of the egg. This is nothing new. I'm sure this has been out there for a while, so if you take off the backing paper on both sides, you can manipulate that foam tape super easy. And then I'll cover the rest of the back with foam tape, and then I'm going to start putting in my bits, my shaker bits. So I've put in the little egg sequins, and then I'm putting in some of the micro pearls. And it'll be ready to go. And then I'm going to flip that glitter stock over, attach that, making sure that I'm pressing really well around the outside of the egg so that I don't have any seepage of the bits coming out. And then I'll use some glue, and I'll attach that to my card base. And then I'll set that off to the side to dry while I make my sentiment, which was just to white heat emboss onto some black cardstock the sentiment that says Happy Easter. I'm going to give it a fishtail banner on both sides, and then just use some more liquid glue to adhere that to the front of the card. And that is going to finish off this project. And I love how this one looks. This is fun. It's kind of funky and fun. For project number 5, I'm going to start off with some Kanzen XL watercolor paper, and I am going to use the aqua pigment color. I'm just going to stick that on my glass mat and grab a flat brush. I want to do a wash down this panel. So I'm covering that with clean water, and then I am going to start out heavy and try and work that all the way down. And I will dry it in between and just add layers. I want that shimmer. It's hard to see on camera, but it's really shimmery, and it is quite, this pale, beautiful pink. So I'm just going to heat that until that is dry, and then I'll go back over it once again, making sure that I can get that color to be a little bit darker on top and kind of wash down. And like I said, it's kind of hard to see, but it's so pretty and shimmery, and this beautiful light pink. Next, I'm going to grab my cardstock, and I have trimmed this down. It's just some of that pattern paper that came in the kit, and I freehand cut that grass down, as you could obviously tell. And so now I'm going to move on to using some glitter glaze. This is the color Sunshine. It came in the spring. It was a spring glitter glaze kit. It was with 4 colors, and it had some stencils. And I'm just going to kind of scrape that along the background. I want this to kind of look like the sun is rising. And so it's hard to see on camera, but I have dried that just a little bit, and I'm going to add a little bit thicker paste sort of in the middle to get a little bit darker color there in the middle. And once again, hard to see it as of now, but you will definitely see it later. And so I'm going to set that off to the side to dry, and I'll go on to working with the rest of the card. So I've got some Express It cardstock, and I'm going to stamp out my bunnies a few times. And then I'm going to Copic color those super simple, just a couple colors, and then I trim those out. Moving back to my grass, I'm going to use some Mowed Lawn Distress ink, and I'm grabbing my Vivas beauty brushes once again, making sure they're clean, and I am going to sponge that all over the top. I just wanted a little bit of dimension. The cardstock or the pattern paper is so pretty, but I just needed a little bit more dimension. So I'm just putting that all over the edges, and then I'm going to grab the Pine Needles green as well. I wanted even more depth. So I'll clean off my brush and pull out the pine needles, and I will put that on top as well. And that just adds that one extra layer of dimension, which is really nice. And then I'll set that off to the side. So I heat my glitter glaze just a little bit, just so that it was dry to the touch. It's not completely dry here, but that's okay. It's dry to the touch, so I can start assembling my card. And as it dries, that color intensifies, which is so cool. And I have put down my grass, and I'm just going to trim off the excess. And I'm going to start arranging my bunnies. So what you didn't see is that I ended up stamping, coloring, and cutting out a bunch more of the little bunnies. I just wanted them to be all over the front because I'm going to use that Bunny Kisses sentiment once again. So I'm using my liquid glue for almost all the bunnies. There's just going to be one that I'm going to pop up on some foam tape to make it look like he's kind of standing out ahead of the rest, and the rest are kind of in the background. But aren't those bunnies so cute? Their little expressions are just too much. I love them. And then I'll just cover that one with the foam tape and pop him up. And then I'm going to start, I'll flip that over and I'll trim off the excess. Kind of give the impression that there's more going on in that background. And I'm going to trim down some of that cardstock and adhere that to a white card base once again. And that'll cover that white card base completely. And then I'm going to get ready to stamp my sentiment. I was so in love with the way the Raven Sparkle embossing powder looked that I had to do it again. So I did it one more time onto some white cardstock using the Versamark ink. And then I'm just going to hand trim those down. And I'm going to cover my panel with some foam tape because it was a little bit warped with all the stuff I had done to it. And this way it'll ensure it stays down. And then I'll trim or peel off that backing paper and stick that down to my card base. And I'll put some foam tape on my sentiment as well, the little bunny kisses, and that will finish off project number 5. Now let's go ahead and take a look at a bonus project that definitely took some time, and it could have been a video all its own. It is a 5x7 canvas panel where I used a stencil and some colored embossing paste for a textured background. So I put a wash of white fluid acrylic paint all over that, and next I dripped the aqua pigment that came in the kit on various spots of the canvas. And then I splattered it with last month's aqua pigment, which is kind of a purpley color. Next, I created my painted panel. This was done the exact same way as my first project. I started with an underpainting of cooler colors to include the last month's aqua pigment color, along with some other various blues and such. I then stamped the scene and painted it with my Daniel Smith watercolors. I trimmed it down and adhered that to some cardstock from the kit that I had distressed on the edges. I stamped the sentiment on that same cardstock. This panel was popped up on the canvas background with some foam tape, and then I finished the project by adhering some of the beautiful flowers that came in the kit. And so here is what project number 1 and the bonus project look like next to each other. So you can see the different underpaintings. One looks like a sunset, and one looks like a sunrise. So it's neat when you use cooler and warmer colors what you can end up getting. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at all the projects I made using the Bunnies and Blossoms inspiration box from Brutus Monroe. I would love to know what you think of these projects. If you have a favorite, go ahead and list that down below if you'd like. I always appreciate when you guys leave some comments and love down below. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you liked this video, go ahead and hit the like button. And as always, guys, I do appreciate you stopping by. Thanks for everything, guys.